Welcome to the Food for Thought podcast. Today's show, Imperialism or Impartiality. What's really going on in high school basketball officiating? We have the pleasure of having the guest on the show today, Mr. Darryl Smith, seasoned 20-plus year veteran of officiating here in the Quad City area. Enjoy the show. Hey, y'all, here we are back. We are black again.
Back in black.
Let's make it official.
Uncle Silk.
Food for thought. We have our guest in here to discuss imperialism or impartiality. What's really going on in the local high school basketball officiating? Brother Darryl Smith is in the house.
Yes, sir.
Man,
Welcome.
please introduce yourself for our viewers, man.
Oh man, I'm Darryl Smith, 28-year officiating official.
Official.
Been doing this since 1994. Been brought in the game by Cliff Hinton. We all familiar with Cliff Hinton.
Yes.
And Cliff back in the day was trying to bring on a host of young black African brothers to pass the torch and do the refereeing thing. It was a good way to stay in tune with the game. And since I played high school and college ball, that was my way of staying involved until I got into coaching when my daughter was in junior high and high school. But yeah, that's been 28 years, man. I just retired last year. I can't say retired because every time I say I retired, somebody calls me up and they hit me up to come referee at Nazir. Sebastian hits me up to come do a tournament. I've been doing a few weekend tournaments, but I gave up the college and high school all around, so I'm not doing any of that. I'm just kind of doing
No matter what the price, because I need some help on the Illinois side.
28 years? That speaks to how good you are. You still get calls to come out and blow that whistle.
I actually had a couple of people call me up to have me come out of retirement so I can get on their crew because they want to form a African American officiating.
Okay.
Which we had one before, myself and Mike Hadley and Byron Fields, and then we had a young brother by the name of Derek Keebler. We all were a group, and we've been reffing together for 8 years. But as you all well know, you've never seen us at any high school games here locally,
especially on the Illinois side. Not one chocolate drop.
Oh well, I was telling Todd earlier today, I gave up doing the Western Big Six quite a few years ago. Got so much going on our side, doing Division III, some JUCO balls, some small NAIA schools up in Dubuque and Kirkwood, that my plate was full. So it's like I just didn't want to. And plus, doing the Western Big Six, the commissioner requested that you make at least 2 trips down to Quincy. Because they're part of the Western Big Six, and I just did not want to take that 3-hour trip down to Quincy.
Especially in the wintertime.
Exactly. So I gave up my Illinois license, kept my Iowa license, and like I said, been fulfilled in what I wanted to do, but it was time for me to step away, even though I didn't want to step away. I think the circumstances of what we talked about earlier, not being able to get marquee games, being a longtime official, and that goes back to the commissioner and the trust factor, and he knew I was a good official. He didn't trust my partners. I vouched for my partners, and so therefore there was a conflict. And when my partners started feeling, we were getting the games, but they were the girl games, and they were the girl games that didn't mean anything. Last year I was refereeing. I did 4 West High School girls games, and they were against Central, North Scott, Muscatine, and Biddendorf. And it's like, didn't want to see the same teams over and over again, and I thought I had put in enough time in my dues to at least get a couple of boys games.
Sure. Oh yes.
And I'm gonna give you an example.
Or the shootout. You should be in the shootout, definitely.
Well, the reason that's Illinois, and you got to have an Illinois license to even do that. Even though
it's over there,
even though the Iowa, they go back and forth with the Iowa, you still have to have the Illinois
like
license.
The house.
Right.
Yep.
So, so I've been blessed. Not 60 yet, but I get out there and do it when duty calls. Like I said, I help Nazir Sebastian out quite a bit, and I help a few other people out, and
You mentioned a group of brothers that you had over here on this side refereeing. Did that include? Man, I don't know his government name. I'm not into throwing government
Put him
names.
out there.
I'm not into throwing those.
Put him out there.
We called him Hollywood. He was light skinned with like a mid-size leisure curl. He had been in some commercials. We called him Hollywood. He was a really good referee. Does that ring a bell? I think his first name was Mike. He might not have been in
Boy,
Mike.
you know,
Called him Hollywood though. Real pretty boy. Looked like Michael Ealy.
I'm trying to think who it is, but like I said, when you doing officiating, unless you're in a tight group, you very rarely see.
Yeah, you gotta be.
Very rarely see other officials unless you just crossing paths. Like during the MAC game, I may do the varsity girls game, but there'd be another group coming in to do the boys game.
Gotcha.
So unless we cross each other paths, we very seldom run into each other. But the name doesn't sound familiar, but I probably know him if I see him.
Okay.
You know, it is a small fraternity.
Absolutely.
So just to get in the meat and potatoes of this,
Okay.
because you're such a seasoned official, 28 plus years in the game, still getting calls to come back and do your thing. I believe it's very well safe to say that you don't officiate on a level of imperialism, trying to impose a certain narrative or thought that you have, but you are out there in the true sense of the game and what officiating is really about and being impartial. Okay?
Okay.
So, I mean, I think we can agree on that. That's one of the reasons why I had you on the show, because from my view, from everything I've heard about you, parents, coaches, they all would agree that Darryl Smith blows his whistle in an impartial status. Okay? You're not for anybody individually, any in one team, but you're out there to ensure player safety, to ensure that the game is running as it should in accordance with the rules.
Exactly. And I guess the reason I feel so strongly about that, and you're right, is because when you play the game, and I played it through high school, growing up in the city of Chicago, playing in the tough Catholic League and playing against teams like Westinghouse and some of these teams, public school teams, and playing in college, especially in college, because I went to Marycrest back in the day. And we're a small-time Catholic women's college that was converted to a co-ed college. And when we started playing in the early 80s, believe me when I say our team was full of brothers from the inner cities. I'm talking Chicago Manly, Chicago CBS, Dunbar in D.C. Our coach, Mike Harper, recruited all inner city kids to come play at this small white institution. And the only brother that was here locally on the team was Donnie McDuffie.
Oh, man.
So,
he was cold. Too tough McDuff.
Too tough. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Too tough. So I saw firsthand as a player in the early 80s. Because you got to remember schools like St. Ambrose, Loras College, University of Dubuque, until the Hunters went there, until Stevie went there, didn't have a lot of black faces in their conference. You know, Iowa Wesleyan, Grandview, even though they did have that connection out in Des Moines. So when we did get here, it was a shock to a lot of people when we come out on that floor, and it was a shock to the officials. And you got to remember, back then it was a two-man crew.
Oh, man.
And the game was played at such a pace and physicality that, it's hard enough it's hard enough for a three-man to do it, but a two-man playing the collegiate game. And so we ran into some issues of
I bet.
that discrimination with the officials,
I bet.
with the administrations from other schools.
I would have loved to see that team play. Boy.
Oh, I had the pleasure.
Just running and jumping all up and down the court. Pressure.
We had two
Pressure
brothers.
bust pipes.
We had two brothers from Simeon, Gary Smith, that played with Nick Anderson and Benji Wilson, and Kevin Evans, who was 6'4".
Rest in peace, Ben Wilson.
Yes, who was 6'4", that can probably get this over the rim.
Wow.
And nobody on that team was over 6'4", but we led the nation in scoring 2 years in a row at about 94 to 96 points a clip without a three-point shot, without a shot clock in the early 80s. So you got to imagine how many times we were getting up and down the court. But to get back to our point, and, like I said, we dealt with it. So when I became an official, my main goal was to see it as the players see it, because I played the game.
From that advantage, exactly.
So therefore, I knew what it was like to get the call against me. I knew what it was like to get the call for me. My job was to just make sure that when I walked off the court as an official, that I didn't leave any question, that I didn't try to take the game from somebody. You know, mistakes will be made.
Sure.
And there's going to be questions after the game that, hey, was that the right call or was not the right call? If you can look in the mirror and say, hey, I did the best I could, and maybe by rule of definition, maybe that wasn't the correct call, but my interpretation of the rule preceded me to blow that whistle, then I have to live with that. There are some officials, we talked about this earlier, who think they're bigger than the game, that think that they...
Imperialism.
Yes.
What'd you say when they impose their will?
Yes.
Well,
I just heard that Darth Vader theme.
yes.
Yeah.
And the thing with that is that these older guys, these older officials, we see it today in today's athletes. It's a different breed, a different mindset,
True.
a different talent level. I'm old school. I'm telling you that right now. My thought process is respect for the game.
Right.
Lovely. Lovely.
But
So-
it sounds like you'd be one of those good ones that would utter those 6 words if it was questionable. Coach, I missed that. My bad.
And I've done
You
that.
could only respect that.
That's human.
And as a coach, okay, man, but get the next one. I got you.
And
that would be the interaction, I would think,
And-
of a good ref and a good coach.
And I've done that. I can point on many occasions where I would go up to the coach, and even when we do the summer leagues, like the Justin Sharp Summer League, to get our skills honed, they have the summer thing over at PepsiCo Center.
Yep.
I've gone to the coach on a couple of occasions and said, you know what, that wasn't the correct call, and we all agreed. Now's the time to make the mistake. But during the regular season,
No mistakes allowed.
It takes a big man to do that.
Yeah. And the coach, I know the coach, he didn't like it any better, but he could understand it, and it sat with him a little bit better.
Well, even as a coach, coaches make mistakes. We're all human.
You ain't
The
never-
players make mistakes.
You ain't never gonna get no coach to admit he made a mistake.
Well, so some of them.
I don't know. Some of them are stubborn. Come on now.
There's a multitude of them.
I coached at Assumption for 12 years, and my daughter, I told them about won state title in 2008, went undefeated, had one of the best.
Assumption, is that
Catholic
Binion's?
school.
Is that
Yes,
Binion's daughter?
yes. Binion's daughter played for me since 4th grade.
Oh, okay.
So I've had Gabby since 4th grade, and they won the state title. But I just remember as a head sophomore coach, a game that was decided, and I had to go into the locker room, and I had to tell my kids, I blew the game. You didn't. I did not put you in the position to be successful at the end of the game.
Bro.
Because I wasn't engaged in what I needed to do. And again, we talked about, remember the philosophy of the coach and the players. As long as they know that you're with them, and that's the thing with officials. Most of the kids that we see now that see these officials, they have no interaction with them other than that hour and 25 minutes on the court.
Right.
So
some of it's obvious too.
yes, and it is. I was going to tell you the other day, the West North varsity boys game.
Okay. Yes.
You got predominantly black players on both teams.
Yes.
Is that the one that
The call was made at the end of the
at
day.
the end of the game,
controversial.
free throws
Yes.
decided it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
So you have 2 black teams, predominantly black.
Right.
They're not all. 2 African American coaches, David Robinson, Marquise Davis.
Unprecedented.
It is, and the heat of a battle game.
Dude, I hope they had a lot of lights because it was dark in that place. You know what I'm saying, man? It's dark.
And
All those darkies walking around.
And do you realize? And I think he showed the video, and I didn't see the good angle on it. I just
Yeah, it
heard
was
the
a little tough
commentary
look, yeah.
that what happened, and everybody was giving their feedback. Terrible call. How do you make that call at the end of the game? Everything, and I'm thinking. to
But
myself,
the thing of it was that that type of call was not made over the duration of the game. So how are you going to flip it and then here it is? Come on, really?
right, and so to be naive and to think that officials don't have an agenda in regards to I'm going to decide the game.
Speak on it. Turn this man's mic up. Speak on it.
I'm not going to determine the outcome of the game. We've seen it over and over again, and you're going to continue to see it because to take the test to become an Iowa high school official, all you need is a book and the test. And you can read the answers.
Open book?
Open book. They used to have a closed book, and the closed book test used to allow you to be certified to do state tournament games and like didn't have to test for 2 years. Now it's just open book.
Some of these officials need the book running up and down the court.
So now you have an open book, and you have a guy that walks off the street and say, hey, I want to become an official, and I got an open book, and I got a test, and I scored 98 on the test. That doesn't mean that they understand the game of basketball.
The index.
Right.
Because there's a such thing as book smart being official.
Absolutely.
And knowing the rules. And there's such a thing as I call gamemanship on the court.
Exactly.
The floor of the game. You know.
And I'm sorry, but former players make the best officials.
And yes. And
by far.
And not those guards that got their shots blocked in the paint.
Right.
Not that official.
Right.
And it's just like we talk about policing. Police officers.
Oh, here we go.
No. Police officers.
Speak on it.
You notice the police officers have the much attitude toward our African American communities are the police officers that used to get picked on in high school as kids.
That's true.
Because now they
Facts.
have that. Now they have that authority or power to hold over you. The same thing with the referee.
Imperialism.
The referee has that power of authority over you, even when they make a mistake. Just like a police officer, they're not gonna own it because that status of we are who we are is going to overlook the deed at hand.
Yes,
and
sir.
So
Yes, sir.
therefore, refereeing is no different than any other occupation. It's just that we have to get, and I've been advocating this for a long time with, and I'm gonna call out his name. He don't even listen to the podcast, so I don't care. Mike Botts is the commissioner of the MAC conference in the Western Big Six.
Wait a minute.
He the one.
Whoa.
Mike Botts.
And both?
Yes, he does both sides of the river.
How does that happen?
Well, the ADs, which we all know are probably all white. Do you know a black AD?
No.
Okay,
We don't even have a real AD at Rocky. We ain't had one for a year and a half. We got a temp AD. So
all the ADs get together every year, and I was telling him Cliff used to run the MAC conference on the Iowa side, and Darryl Lamps used to run the Western Big Six.
I remember that name.
On the Illinois side, but they kind of combined, and it was like, well, let's do this back and forth. Well, when the MAC decided to bubble it in and all, so the commissioner had to do baseball, football, basketball, wrestling. Cliff did not want to take on that responsibility because he was focusedly on basketball. Because back then the ADs could call anybody they wanted and hire anybody they wanted.
I used to hear this all the time, and that right there.
that's why you get
That
those.
impartiality goes out the window because you're hand picking who you want to blow your whistle
And
whistle at your game.
And what games you have them for. So they decided to have one commissioner. Mike Boss stepped in because Mike was a big baseball guy in this area. He still is. He's like one of the top baseball officials and runs the east side of the state for Iowa. Well, Mike took over everything, and so just like anything else, you're gonna have your favorites. And Mike Botts had his favorites. And again, I don't give in to the politics of. I think my reputation and me going out and doing a good job, unless you heard something from a coach or a AD that said, hey, we don't want to see Darryl Smith here anymore. We don't like the way he officiates, or he blew too many calls. There's not too many times a coach or AD would call the commissioner and say, hey, that guy's terrible. I don't want to see him anymore. But what happens is the commissioner, Mike Botts, decides, hey, I want A, B, and C to do this game,
Right.
even though this group will probably be better because he's trying to highlight his friends. Do you know how many Cedar Rapids officials come down and do MAC games? That's about a ton of officials you've never seen before, and they're not even from this area. They're from Iowa City, Cedar Rapids.
So that group that did that game you were talking about, the West
I've seen
Iowa
that
City.
crew.
Oh, you have
Last
seen that
night.
crew.
I've seen that crew here locally.
Okay.
I wish I
Never
had.
mind.
I should have took some pictures, man, because you'd have recognized the guy. Two of them, shaved bald head, glistening in the light.
Yeah.
Glasses. One of the guys wears glasses now. He used to have darker hair. He's been an official here in the area. I know you know him.
Wasn't Joe Thompson, was it?
Name, I don't know.
Joe
I just
Thompson's
know
the guy in Illinois I was talking about with the glasses.
This guy is usually on the Iowa side, and he just recently started to wear glasses. He's wearing the sports goggles.
Okay.
So, so, I mean, it comes down to one person that has control over the whole calendar dynamic of the officials. And if you're a baseball official or a football official, Mike's going to give you games in basketball because he knows that you carry a crew in different sports. See, I don't do any other sport than basketball because I don't know anything about football. Everything to me coming off that line, I think you holding because of the way it is.
Right.
Or, everything coming across that plate at 70 miles an hour from a high school kid looks like a strike to me because, so I try to stay within what I know.
Right.
And so because I don't do other things and
it's not getting done just for the paycheck.
Sure.
Right, exactly.
Speaking of that,
hey,
what do they make it a game as a referee typically for a high school for high school official
I think
varsity?
that serves for a lot of motivation for people just to get out there. And again, going back to what we discussed, those ADs selecting their drinking buddies or whoever, that they know on a personal level to come in. I'm gonna make sure he gets paid. I'm gonna make sure he's gonna help me my team win the conference.
Because if I employ him, that might be 4 or 5 calls that we get.
Most definitely.
Well, and that's the reason why they wanted to get rid of the ADs and the coaches handpicking the officials because when I first started, I didn't even get MAC games. I had to go out to Preston and I had to go with Cliff to Dubuque just to get the games because there's certain officials in this area
Where'd you say Preston?
Preston, Iowa.
Where's that at?
That's
you ought to know
Where?
Preston, Iowa, because correct me if I'm wrong. They make them hot links out there, bro.
No, Gino's Pieces out there.
Gino's Pieces out
yes.
there. But Preston, Iowa makes them hot them
Yes, the red hot.
Yes, sir.
They do?
Yeah.
We'll feature that on another
Preston,
episode.
Iowa.
Food for thought, definitely.
I don't think they got BET in Preston, Iowa. I don't think so. They might have hot links, but I bet they don't got BET.
Mute this brother's mic.
You got to go to Moore and Oink in Chicago.
There you go.
For real.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That's a hot link.
Yeah.
I got some of them in my freezer.
Yeah.
So it took a while for me to get my foot in the door here, even though everybody that was coaching, that was an AD, knew about me through my days at Marycrest.
Absolutely.
Dave Wessel, Mark Brooks, all these guys knew about me. The trust factor wasn't there because they hadn't seen me officiate. But once I started to officiate here locally with Cliff, I was more than able to get my share of MAC games. And again, Cliff was so diverse in giving games equally across the board that people love working for Cliff. Unlike now, I have people walking away from the game because they can never get the opportunity to referee a decent high school game. It's no fun reffing a game every week where the score is 73-13 and you got to run the clock in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And that's what drew my two partners away because they would like, hey, we would like to be, in order for you to get acknowledged by the state, you have to do X amount of games. So I would go to Mike and say, hey, can we get a couple of boys games just so Derek can get recognized and he can submit his paperwork to the state saying I did the West Muscatine. Right. And he would never do it. It was always the girls' games. And I even asked Mike about it. I said, Mike, you know what? I've been doing it for a long time. And he basically told me, you know what, Darryl, your partners are not that well seasoned. And Derek played Division I ball at the University of San Francisco. Then he transferred to the D2 school down in Alabama. Mike Hadley, I think everybody knows Mike. You probably seen him out at the TBK Bank. He played professional ball over in China.
So these guys are actually seasoned
Well-traveled.
Players,
Yeah.
well-traveled.
Played at the University of North Carolina, Charlottesville. I mean, he played D1 ball. And his resume speaks for itself.
How you know he didn't want that popcorn?
Oh, no.
He changed the lifestyle. I ain't going to call him.
And he's not going to let it go the way he sees it.
No.
Let me ask you, FKA, that's formerly known as, the group of high school officials over here on the Davenport side. How many of us are in these crews? Is Vernon still over here reffing, or Buddy?
Diminished.
Rod was the gentleman that I was talking about.
Rod Tatum.
Yes.
Yeah, Tatum.
Yes.
That's
Yes. Light skinned with the curl.
little tip fade
You know,
like
so
yourself.
look like Michael Ealy. You know.
Okay, now, Rod Tatum does not ref anymore because his new job as
Don't bust him out.
no. I know he works with individuals going into the home.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
it takes so much of his time because he's always on call, and I think
We need him back.
Rod was getting burnt out too. I mean, he was doing it like me, weekend warrior, then 3 or 4 times during the week on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend.
Sure.
So
I know Vernon was active for a while too. I think
Winter too?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know if he still does it. He was a few years ago.
His brother does, but he doesn't do any high school games. He's not licensed, but he still picks up the whistle and maybe doing on.
He was good. He had a few of our games. I thought he was good. A few of our freshman games, I should say.
Darker skinned brother, well built, put together. He spends some time in the gym. He's only one that I've seen this year on the Iowa side. I don't know his
Really?
name. Only one.
Todd Gilmore is who you're talking about.
Oh,
Is that what
Todd.
it is?
Yeah.
You know Todd Gilmore,
Okay.
bald
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
Gets up and down the court really
He
quick.
does.
He's like a
as
gazelle.
they should.
Yeah.
I told him one day, I'm like,
Former
man,
player, played baseball and basketball.
Yeah, I said,
Athlete.
I know Todd.
Yeah, I said, Todd,
Todd.
you can't be running past me on the court when I'm trying to get on the court, man. So, but you know, when you're young and eager, you want to get up and I mean that's why you see these young.
But that's the part about the officiating. He works to get in position.
Yeah.
You got that crew that we despise. That these cats, they should have retired like 10 years
Right,
ago. At least
because-
they look like it.
One will be on the baseline, and the
His
foul
belly
will
will be at half
happen.
court.
That too. The foul will happen right in front of him, but the guy at midcourt calls it. It's like, dude, that's right in front of you.
Why couldn't you see that?
And that's a legit question that a coach asks him, and he gets upset. I'm not going to listen to you anymore. Sit down.
Yeah.
That's a legit question. That's right in front of you. How come that's not your call?
Imperialism.
Okay. Now, in defense of officials,
Okay.
and I'm gonna go this route with it. When you do a 3-man crew, and you have that angle, there are responsibilities that the officials have to have. So if this is the basket right here, and you got an official right here, you got an official up here, and then you got what we call the C official, the one on the opposite side that kind of looking this way. Where depending upon where the ball is at, this official has to follow the movement at the baseline. So if the ball's over here, and he's looking over here, the C's got to be looking at the off the ball contact over here. The person up here has to be looking here. So there is a diagonal way that we have to look at it, that they tell us we have to look at it. Now,
Blocking sectors of foul.
what we find officials doing, and I'm guilty of it because I do it and I've been doing it for all these years, we follow the ball. We all follow the ball. So if I'm down here and the ball's over there and my eye's over here and there's something right there that I should be watching that I'm not watching, but this guy sees it out of the corner of his eye because he knows that that's not his area. This is his area, but I'm ball watching here, and he makes that call. I gotta trust as my partner that he saw something that I didn't see.
There you go. Yeah.
So, in all actuality, and I'm guilty of it. I'll be honest with you, I'm the worst ball follower there is because the most activity happens around the ball. Because you got the pick and roll, you got the ball
the
hand,
give
you
and
got
go.
you got the hand checking. The only person that doesn't have a lot of responsibility in that scenario is the person all the way up the top, because he sees everything from that angle.
Yep.
So if he happens to see something that I didn't see or this person didn't see, and I've had coaches do this to me. I had Dave Wessel, Saladino. Hey, and this was, how do you make that call over there? Well, coach, I followed the ball even though I shouldn't have. But he had to make
Sorry, folks. Ain't even Mama Monday, and she called.
That's all right, man.
This interruption is brought to you by FKA, DJ formerly known as Todd X. Now that I get that, I can understand that, but nah.
I mean,
Bruh. He's sidelined midcourt. I'll give you a great example. I'm an Illini fan. And to me, Kofi Coburn gets fouled just about every time he's under the basket. He gets this, and they don't call it because he's so much bigger than everybody, which is the wrong way to.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, the Shaq law.
Yeah, exactly the same
The
thing.
Shaq law.
Yeah.
And it's like the guy right underneath the basket watches him get this, and he'll go up and he'll look at him, and then a late whistle from midcourt, and it's like, why isn't he calling it? And he's calling it from way out there at a bad angle because he saw his arm go down after it got hit. That's the only reason he called it.
And another reason he called it is because he knows that down the road that to keep the coaches on both sides, especially that side of the ball, happy, the line coach Underwood, a call has to be made. I'll give you a perfect example. I was watching an NBA game the other day, and a player went to the hole. I don't know if it was John Morant or I think it was Klay Thompson. It was one of those late games. And the referee was right there, and he goes up and he gets hammered. And the NBA officials are taught, let the play go, especially if the ball goes in. Now, the shot was missed, and after the shot was missed, the whistle came. And it came from that same official that was opposite side. Because they were told for the flow of the game does not get interrupted, because if you gonna call every single foul like that, the game would never get over with, because we know that he would get fouled on every possession, just like we knew Shaq would get fouled on every possession. So they're instituted, and I read this in the NBA because I get referees' website, that they have to let certain things go, because once you set precedent on that first reach foul, then every time down the court, every single time, that call has to be made, and if they don't be made, then that's when the coaches lose their mind.
Right.
So if they don't call an obvious one is when you see the guy just, like he said, the arm come down and that ref called it. They're gonna let it play through, because they know down the road during that game, that call has got to be made at some point. But if you call it at the 1908 point of the first half,
then you got to call it the rest of the game.
Exactly,
right.
And they're not going to put themselves in position to do
Right.
that. So I agree with you that obvious stuff should be called, but
So that's why, there's no hand checking, but if you watch him down low, they allow this to go on.
Right.
In his back. He's 7 foot 290.
Yep.
But them guys, sometimes they got two to deal with him.
Yep.
And they could call that every time, but they don't.
But as long as you're not dislodging the player from his position,
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, they're not going to call that.
Well, arm bar in college and in high school is legal.
Yes.
Oh, it
arm
is.
bar.
Yeah.
The minute you extend it
To dislodge.
to control the player,
Right.
it's a foul. But if I'm guarding you and I got my hand in your back and I'm vertical here, because what is the offensive player doing with you? They're trying to size you up to see where they at.
Trying to back you down.
So they're trying to back you down. So there's got to be a little leeway there. So we allow the arm bar, just like with the hand check. You see guards all the time. Touch.
They take it
touch.
off. They take it off.
And
So
they take it off because they're not controlling the offensive player with that quick touch. What they're doing is they maintaining the distance and they maintaining my space with you. The minute that player makes that move to the hole and I put my hand right there and I have it there for more than the 2-second count, because now I can control where you go with the basketball. So that's when the call is made. So a coach would say, well, why did you call that, but you didn't call this one? Well, that's why, because he's not controlling his motion by doing that slight touch. But the minute he extends that arm or he holds them more and I was always told by Cliff, if he holds them for more than 2 seconds, it's got to be a foul. Because at 2 seconds, he actually can control whether he extends that arm, whether he pushes him this way, and the player's trying to go that way. But he said, if he's just doing that hand check, you got to let that go. Because, again, down the road, how many times have we seen a kid come to the lane and the hand's right here, but they're going up straight?
Yeah.
And you see official call a foul. And everybody's losing their mind because he got the block here. And we're telling the coach, the reason we call that foul is not because of the verticality here.
It's
because
lower contact.
And we have to deem that as an airborne shooter, and I'm going to get you the book so you can read up on it because I want you to be a lot educated. As soon as that airborne shooter goes up in the air, there should be no contact. That's why we always tell our players, verticality, straight up and down.
Same thing in football.
Right.
The ball
but
being
the minute,
in flight.
and even though he may not,
receiver.
even though he may not do anything with this arm other than balance himself to block that shot, he still has control of that player with that arm. So that's why.
It can affect the shot.
And coaches are getting hip to that because you know Coach Polite teaches that when they're getting down on defense, get your hand out, get your hand. Once they hand in there, kind of make a little bit of contact with him and then pull it back just for that distance.
Not enough to impede the player.
Indirect control, I guess you could call it.
Yep. So it's a slippery slope, and again, that goes back to what we allow as officials. Mm-hmm. I may see that as, hey, play on because I understand the flow of the game. But you may get some guy who read the book that says, the minute the player touches another player and impedes his motion, that foul, boom, that got to be called. And that's where we get the discrepancies in officiating, because you have a crew that lets a lot of physicality go one game, then another group that will call everything in the book, and you'd be wondering from one game to the other, where's consistency? Well, it's not so much the players, it's the officials as a group understanding. And again, you got the book smart officials and you got the game of flow officials. Yeah. And that's why we have the problems we have now in officiating, because you do have two types of officials out there calling the game.
Yeah. So, you know, in wrapping this up, because we could talk all day.
All day.
The two types, the difference in the officiating. Darryl, from your observation, from your almost 30 years of experience, what can be done going forward that can make this on more of an impartial, equal, and balanced flow? I mean, what can be done here in the officiating game? Is it just getting new commissions? Because what I've noticed, I think we can all agree, we don't really see this on a collegiate level. We don't see this on an NBA level.
See what?
The imperialism, basically.
Inconsistency?
Yes, the consistently inconsistent.
Have you watched a Big Ten game lately? You might want to watch a Big Ten game.
But okay. So with that said, though, in comparison to high school in the area,
certain teams like Wisconsin and Purdue, they seem to always get favorable calls, whereas Illinois and Michigan States, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
Too much time in the sunlight.
Something like that. Something like that.
And let's be honest here.
Let's do this.
Referees are human beings. They are emotional just like everybody else. They see that they're being criticized by a coach, even though they have to be impartial. They see themselves being criticized by a coach or an AD or a player. Why do you think the NBA has so many fines for players and coaches that speak out against officials? Because the minute you start speaking out, you kind of tarnishing their brand. Yeah, and so even though it's very unfair, I would be lying to you if I didn't sit here and say at some time during my refereeing career that I didn't take things personal and it affected the way I called the game later on. I didn't think that I called it
statute of limitations, bro.
Well, I didn't call the game differently, but my attitude toward what I would allow to go on during the game changed before where I would let a kid say something to me or say something to another player, you know, or a coach. Okay, this is how we're gonna do this dance, the salsa. Okay, you've already set the ground rules, because I'm gonna give you that leeway. I'm gonna give you that stretch where I'm allowing you to say a few things or do a few things that I normally wouldn't allow myself to do. But because you're animated right now and because you're upset, I'm going to let some of this stuff go. But once you cross that line, officials are human beings too. I've seen officials basically take over a game because somebody said something to them or somebody yelled something from the crowd, and all of a sudden their whole dynamic changed, and every call against that team went that way. And is it unfair? Yes.
How about TV Ted Valentine and how Bobby Knight did him? Those couple of just screaming at him, and he's no longer in the Big Ten. I think he went down south. Yeah. I don't know the timing. I don't know if you know the brother ref I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
He was yelling at him, and he's just doing this, ignoring him because he already called one T.
Yeah.
And Bobby Knight, you know Bobby Knight.
Well, he's
called him everything but a child of God.
He's in the Pac-10 now.
Oh, he's in the Pac-10.
Yep. Okay. Darryl Valentine. I think that's Ted Valentine.
Ted Valentine.
Yeah, he's
call
in
him
the
TV
Pac-10
Ted.
now.
TV Ted.
So you know, coaching experience, All Army basketball. Shouts out to my boy Tim Spikes, the former head All Army basketball coach, Akron Zip. What's up, Tim?
Ask me the last question, and I get out of here.
Hold on. We had a game that he and I did over in Europe. We're coaching your ball, and this really truly happened. The officials, the free throw disparity was so ridiculous, and we got ransacked.
Why would that be? Would that be because one team is playing overly aggressive, or
it wasn't just that? It was basically there was some bad calls,
a running jump team
that were missed, and there was even a couple of them. It became a pattern. Coaching staff, players, we got a little vocal on it. We got dusted the first game. We played 2 games a day. Came back that next game, and we took it out on the other team, ran them off the court. The official came down the court during the play, and he looked at our coaching staff and said, "See what happens when you don't mess with the refs?"
Wow.
And we were like, wow. Ooh. True story. True story.
And that's happened on many occasions.
Should have told her to pull the skirt down.
Man, look, it was that first game was so bad, the whole coaching staff just sat on the bench, shut up, and just let the game play and just took the L.
Yeah.
Because they weren't going to let us win because of how we were John with them and going back and forth. Like you said.
There.
So, that's kind of like maybe a man pride thing.
So to go back to the training part of it, what you think we could do to make it better structurally across the line? We all sit here, we understand the dynamics of racism in our culture. To say diversity training for officials, but the state of Iowa, if you go on the state of Iowa website, you look up the administration, you won't see one African American on there. So how are you going to preach diversity and inclusiveness in an organization that doesn't have any color in it? So for me, your question, what would help? What would help was
that
to
have that resonates from the top down too. Because then you combine that with refs that live in Alito and Viola. The only time they see someone of another color is on TV or on the court.
Yeah.
So there's no interaction at all.
So yes, you want to be able to include some type of diversity training, because we all know, we all been around basketball and sports long enough. There's an aggressive way that some black players play that get in your face, and there's some that's passive, and then there's some that we see Caucasian kids do. And we talked about this. Why is it just like you said, that coach that was screaming and yelling at the top of his lung, but then Polite said something. Polite said something. All of a sudden, the T was administered. Their perception is what it is, and it's because of the society we live in.
Angry black man perception.
And that unfortunately, that's where it is. But we need to, first of all, try to get more minorities into this game, because I said it once and I say it again. They're making money.
What do they pay? What do they get a game? Get these brothers out there.
And why $100
a game?
Why not?
Is it $100 a game?
It's $90 for a varsity boys game.
Round it off. $100 a game. Come on, brothers. Let's go.
It's
90 minutes?
$75, $70 for a sophomore game.
Man.
$55 for a freshman game.
Come on.
And I've been trying to recruit brothers to do it, but unfortunately, it's a time consumption thing. And
I don't know. Your shoulder might prohibit you from.
This weekend, I did a tournament, made $700 in 2 days.
See, whoa. Did you hear that?
Yes, 700.
700.
But there's only
in a weekend.
In the 2 day period.
2 days work.
Not 5.
700.
Yeah.
700.
This is Mike on mail.
Tax free.
I hope these.
What?
I hope these brothers hear this.
Yeah.
Man.
Tax free.
I might take the test.
And you get to see a free game.
So I've always before, when I started refereeing, I did it for the love of the game. My last 5-6 years,
Did you dunk on your girlfriend?
It was a business. Because after a while, you have to treat it as such.
Absolutely.
Because, now you have to look out. As much as I still love the game, do I want to deal with the heartache and the headache of day in and day out scrutiny and being yelled at, and kids, and the respect of the game? I just remember back when I played, man, we couldn't say anything to the other team. We couldn't say anything to the officials. And if coach had an issue, he would get the technical. Now you got kids out there just screaming and yelling and getting in each other's face. And, you know, and it is changing times. But like I said, I'm old school. And I believe in the respect of the game. I believe in the sportsmanship of the game. And that goes on the official side, too. Officials shouldn't get caught up in the kid that may have an attitude because, again, we don't know what that kid went through. That kid could have just lost his grandfather a week ago and his emotions starting to get the best of him, but he's trying to play to take that distraction away. And I saw that happen. And I saw that happen one time, and the kid went to the bench crying, and I was sitting behind the bench, and you know, the official came over, like, I didn't mean to give him a technical and give him that upset. And he's like, no, his grandfather died 2 weeks ago, and this was his way of getting on the court to try to 2 hours to forget about.
Sure.
And the official, I'm sure at that point, the official probably thought, man, was that technical even? But the kid said something under his breath to the official, and the official got the rabbit ears. You know, don't upstage me.
Exactly.
And so therefore, he used him as an example. And the kid probably would have said something like, "That's BS," or "I called," or "I didn't foul." And we've had them all. But again, try not to engage with the emotion of the player or the coach, and that's what I tried to teach That's what I tried to teach Mike, Byron, Derek. PK was my protege when he got into the refereeing game. I brought Pat Kelly into the refereeing game.
We'll be speaking to PK.
And he'll tell you, and I used to take PK to Preston with me, and we used to go everywhere, and he would tell you that us as a crew, him and I, because we started off as a two-man crew, you know, we never had any issues because, again, he understood sports. He understood where I was coming from, understood where he's coming from, and we build a rapport. So, yeah.
That's where the diversity is.
And that's where the diversity with the training comes in.
Okay.
Comes in at.
That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's good food for thought. Darryl Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
Darryl.
Man, we want to thank you, Darryl.
Man,
Darryl.
I am.
Not Darryl. Darryl.
That's right. Like Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder.
Yeah, you know what? You look like that brother. Man.
So, yeah.
You look like you're about to go out and tear down a backboard right now.
Hold on, I'm having a flashback. When you ref, didn't you used to have like a black knee brace that you wore?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. Good ref. I remember him now.
Well,
I remember that knee brace.
Because I had knee replacement.
Okay. Yeah, I'm remembering.
Yeah.
I remember. He was a good dude. One of the good ones.
He's a good dude. Good dude.
One of the good ones.
We are fortunate to have him with us here, folks.
So I'm glad.
I am blessed to be here.
I'm glad you didn't give me a technical them times.
Oh, man, you know.
You just came and talked to me. He said, "Calm down, coach. This is what happened." Oh, okay.
Try to explain, you know, and sometimes when you explain, that doesn't really justify the answer that they're looking for.
Right.
And so you just try to say, well, and that, man, I tell coaches and players, the game is 32 minutes long. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't let this one whistle determine how you continue the rest of the game on, because if you get emotionally detached from what your task is at hand is supposed to be doing, then you're going to allow me to dictate going forward every time. If I see I made you upset calling that foul, wait till I call 3 seconds. You know, and then watch you lose your back.
Right.
So
then I'm gonna want 3 seconds on the 3 seconds.
Yeah, so I try to tell players and coaches, let the game happen, and if there's something that happens that costs the game to go either way or the other, that's the part of growing and learning. You know how many times I walked off the court a loser? How many times I walked off the court a winner? And I don't remember anything other than that. I don't remember what the officiating was like. I don't remember what the shots were like. I tell my kids all the time, nobody remembers what you did in 4th and 5th grade.
Right.
And in the TBK or beyond the baseline.
Right.
But I tell my daughter, what do you remember about high school? We won the state title.
Championship. Yep, I bet she remembers that.
And she remembers that. She got the ring. She got the full. She got her name up in the hall. I mean, all that stuff. So, or she used that to get a scholarship to play college basketball.
Stuff.
Yes.
So
vehicle. Use it as a vehicle.
You know, when I see these AAU tournaments out here and these parents going crazy at the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, which I love the passion.
He's 10 years old.
I love the passion because you wanting your kid to be successful, but at what cost do you want to push them away from the game because you're pushing them so hard? And so therefore, they're not going to remember this. I told the parent the other day, I was up at North Scott. Man, your daughter's in 7th grade now. And I remember I used to have her in 5th grade. I remember a tournament we played. Remember that tournament? No, I don't remember it. Of course you don't remember it because it's in the past now. That girl didn't get a scholarship in 5th grade to go play in college because of that tournament.
In 5th grade.
Right. So, yeah, there you go.
Man.
That's it.
Yeah, so
Preach.
I see it on both sides of the spectrum. Referees, and I do agree with you guys a lot. There's racism, there's impartiality, there's what we would call lack of knowledge in how to referee
Well said.
a different clientele of kids, because we can go over to watch PV play and they running that offense and stalling the ball and getting the best shot possible, and it's boring as
Let's
heck.
go Hoosiers.
And then we can go watch a North or West play, and the game is played at an up-tempo pace, and they're trying to create turnover. They're trying to do everything. And so when you have two opposite meets, what you're going to have in a couple of days when West plays
Friday.
PV, you're going to see the difference. As a coach, I always to my players, I always want a more intelligent player than a more athletic player, because the intelligent player will be able to think the game and understand what they have to do. Instead of athleticism, the highlights of the dunk look great, but if you can't do what I asked you to do as a coach,
right,
and run my offense and do this and do that, then we're not going to be successful, because now I can't trust you with the ball in your hand.
Especially if you're running some read and react, cutting offenses like open and different motion sets where you read and react. That IQ piece really comes into play.
And that's what your point goes back to officiating. If officials don't know the floor of the game and understand the players that they're officiating, then they shouldn't be officiating. Because a guy who thinks that this is the 1980s Indiana, Lou Henson, Indiana Bob Knight type basketball where they're going to make the pass and cut and screen.
Four passes.
It's not going to happen, because today's athletes are all about pace, all about speed, all about that. And so now you get into a game where officials don't know how to officiate these kids.
Is there a requirement to be in shape to be an official? Because some on the Illinois side, it's like,
no, sir.
Third trimester, or what are we doing here, buddy? It's like, and he's struggling to get up and down. If it's a struggle to get up and down the court to keep up and make calls, then
I know you heard some of them cats down there sitting down there at the scores table.
You gotta get a treadmill or something for this guy. Some Slim Fast or
I tell you, hey,
man, what are those diet plans that Nick Saban be doing? What's it called? I can't remember. What's it called, Bill?
Nutrisystem.
Nutrisystem. That's what we need to. Man, we need a Nutrisystem vending machine for these people.
Yeah. So you're right. And that's the reason why they went to a 3-man, to make it easier for the officials. Not because you had a second set of eyes.
You gotta have that.
Well, when they got big officials that look like they ain't farted in 3 years and they just all bloated out there looking like a bladder, we might need to go to 4 officials.
With this shot clock coming up in high school,
I can't wait for
it's gonna push a lot of old officials out the door, because they won't be able to keep up with that pace. One thing about official is, you get a team that's willing to hold the ball in the half court for a minute and a half, like a PV or North Scott. That plays right into your hands as an official. I don't have to work as hard. I just got to focus on it. But once you got a 30-second shot clock, and within 30 seconds that ball is going
up and
you're
down.
You're gonna see a lot of officials leave. The only problem is we're not getting the numbers coming in that we have going out.
Gotcha.
And that's why you see these same officials in the same games doing the same stuff, because
the same questionable calls.
They're not young guys willing to come up and take the torch from them, and that's because it starts at the AAU level. These guys get burnt out. They think, okay, I'm gonna go in and make this $500, but then after getting yelled at by an AAU coach that has a top 10 team in the nation and players playing above the rim, all of a sudden, man, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
No, this is just, I didn't sign up for this, and then all of a sudden they walk away from it. They go to a game like baseball, where they have to stand in one spot and call a ball or a strike, or their movement and decision making is not based on the play; it's based on what the hitter does with the ball.
Yeah, but you open yourself up.
There you go.
You open yourself up to Karen, because Karen is in them baseball stands.
Yes.
You got to be careful.
Yes,
now.
yes.
Karen is a mother father.
Yes. So
we're gonna hit a quick commercial here. We're gonna have to shift gears, man. We're in overtime, man. We got PK waiting on the line here.
Overtime.
Yeah, straight up overtime. PK, player, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, man, when you gonna smoke that cigar I gave you over your birthday back in September?
You know what that is, PK?
I like. It was October, Big D, and those got to sit for 6 to 8 months.
Oh, okay, well, you gotta let me know what you think, bro. And I'm glad to have you on the phone with me before I get out of here, man. I was just telling him how I bought you in the game back in the day, man, and how we used to be like salt and pepper. What is it called?
Bacardi and cola.
Hey, don't think that now. How I'm starting out how I got involved.
Hey, what do you call it? Peas and carrots, like Jenny and Forrest Gump.
That's right.
My boy.
Wait, does that make me Jenny?
It don't matter, man. I love you either way it goes, brother. Shit, I ain't got nothing but love for you, man.
Y'all can call each other later on.
That's right.
PK,
all right,
hold the line
I gotta
for
get
us.
off the phone now, so I'll talk to y'all later. I got to say hi to Darryl. That's good.
Yeah.
You're a fool. Hold the line for us, brother. We're gonna go to commercial break, and we're gonna come back to you, man.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.